Guitar intervals, C major, A minor, and related modes. This time looking at the G Mixolydian mode, focusing on centering around measuring from the G note located on the 5th string down from the top of the guitar, fret number 8, and this is part number 3. Noting one of our major objectives is to line up all of our resources in the same direction, making them as easy on the eyes as possible from the perspective of the player of the guitar, who is of course located behind the guitar. Therefore, for example, my guitar is going to look like I'm playing left-handed, but no, we just flipped it around to mirror your perspective from behind your guitar as though you were playing it into a mirror. Similarly, our Excel worksheet, which is representing the fretboard, is going to have this representing the low or heavy E string, the one closest to the ceiling, top to bottom, left to right, situated as though we took our guitar and it's just imprinted the strings on the screen. We're now going to be continuing on with our interval practice around this G note, which is on the 5th string down from the top of the guitar, fret number 8, on the B string. So that means as we go around this note and look at the same shape, we're going to build in essence the same shape around it, which basically means we're going to be looking at the Mixolydian mode. This is a practice. We recommend doing practices like this, like 15 minutes a day, although it's kind of heavy on the theory, because once we get that down, then it makes it a little bit easier for us to improvise and do different things in a more fluid and flowing way. So before we jump into it, let's get a quick recap of the Mixolydian mode. This is the third time or the third presentation on this note. So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail just in terms of how you might use the different modes, why it's useful to kind of think about the different modes and how you might apply them as we are doing that. So we're on the Mixolydian. Notice the Mixolydian is related to the related major. The C Mixolydian is the 5th of the related major, in this case, which is going to be the C. Now note, of course, what we want to do on the guitar and most other instruments as well, although most of the time people use the piano as your starting point to learn like music theory, which is great because it gives you that pattern of the whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. So I'm not a piano player, but I would assume that learning the piano, you're going to start to learn that pattern, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, and then be able to move that pattern up by looking at and starting it from different places, which basically means you're playing different modes. Now, the downside of the piano, however, is that because it's lined up to have smaller keys, the black notes, as the half steps in relation to the major scale of a C major, then when you move up your positions, you have to change your hand position a little bit to adjust for the fact that although the shapes are using the same, they're all movable shapes, the keys are different sizes. So that's going to have your mind approach it a little bit differently. Whereas on the guitar, of course, there are no smaller notes. There's smaller frets at the top of the guitar that we have to deal with, so that might kind of alter how we might want to play a particular item so that we can reach up higher on the guitar rather than back on the guitar or something like that. But once we learn a particular shape, we can typically move it up and down the fretboard and it's going to be uniform. And that's great, although we can't move it as easily this way, vertically up and down the fretboard because of the kink in the tuning. We can, but we have to then always be accounting for this dang kink in the tuning, which becomes an issue. I'm going to take these off. So that means although we're still learning kind of in the C major and related modes, although I typically see it as an A minor more than the C major because that's right kind of like in the middle of the guitar, and in shape number 1, if you use it as a pentatonic shape, it's kind of a minor shape. But we can move this shape around possibly even more easily than you could say on a piano because it's going to be uniform going up and down. So that's going to be the general idea. So what we would like to do is learn the relative positions then, because that's what's going to be movable, not the actual notes. So the fact that I would like to kind of know, I have an idea of the notes, but that's not really where my focus is. My focus is not that I want to know the 3 notes that are in a C major, right? A C, E, and G. I would much rather be able to say it's a 1, 3, 5 position to any kind of major chord, right? And therefore if I also know the relative positions on the fretboard, I can always build it, not even if I don't know what the root note is, right? I don't even know what the notes are, I can still build it because I know the relative positions. That's going to be our general concept here. So usually we start with the basically learning the majors and then compare all the other modes to it. So right now we're looking at the Mixolydian mode. And whenever we're looking at these major modes, it's useful to look at them kind of together in terms of if you were playing them, I want to play all the major chords possibly, which in the key of a major scale would be the 1, 4, 5. The 1, 4, 5 is what builds. They all have a major third when you build chords within them. And then the 2, 3, and 6 are going to have the minor third. They have minor chords if you build a chord from these notes starting there. And then you've got the Locrian, which is the weird one, has a flat 5 and still a minor third to it. So that's going to be, so generally that's going to be the idea. But remember, if I'm going from the 1, 4, 5 in a major key, and then I want to play in some other mode like the Aeolian, the next most popular, which is the minor scale, I have to reorientate, putting this A to the 1 usually is how we think of it, right? And so now the A note is the 1, all the notes are the same, but now the 1, 4, 5 relative position is all minors, right? The 1 is now the minor, which is equivalent to what the 6 was before, and now the relative position 4 is now what I would call absolute mode number 2, or the Dorian, and then 5, the 5th is absolute mode number 3. So again, most people, how do people deal with that usually? We start to remember that, well, okay, well, if I'm in the major key, that means the 1, 4, 5 is going to be all the major chord constructions that have a major third, and basically that means the rest of them, except for the last one, is going to have a weird flat 5th. That means the 2, 3, and 6 has a minor, and then the 7th is the weird one. And then on the minor, we say, oh, look, it mirrors, which it does, but it's kind of a shortcut to say, okay, the 1, 4, 5, if I look at it from the perspective of the minor, the 1, 4, 5 are going to be all the minors, which will be Aeolian or the minor scale, right? And then the Dorian modal chord, and then the Phrygian modal chord, which means that the 3 then we have the 6 and the 7 are going to be the majors, and the funny one is the 2 in that case. So we kind of just start to remember, oh, the 1, 4, 5 in a major key are all the majors, and a 1, 4, 5 in the minor are the minor. It happens to work out that way. But what if I go to some other key like the Mixolydian, which is common in like a bluesy context? Now it doesn't really work that way, right? The 1, 4, 5 is no longer all major, right? The 1 is a major, the 4 is a major, and then the 5 is minor. So what do I do with that if I'm trying to think about other modes that I'm playing in? What do people normally do? They get stuck. We get stuck by playing only in the major scale because I happen to memorize that all of the positions that I go through, I know whether to make a major third or a minor third, and I possibly don't know anything about the rest of it, the 7, 9, 11, and 13. What would we like to be able to do? I'd like to be able to learn the rest of it. I'd like to be able to say, okay, if I go to the 1, 4, 5, I know that I'm going to play a major third, but I'd also like to know what I can do that's still in the same key if I wanted to add the 7, 9, 11, and 13. And I'd like to go to any other mode and be able to say, I'm going to play the relative positions of that mode and still be able to determine that the chord constructions from any of the notes in there will have a major third or a minor third, major chord or minor chord, and the other positions. How do I know that? How can I figure that out? You can think of the chords that you're building not simply as major and minor, but as modal chords, right? So in other words, if I'm building a chord, if I'm building anything that's out of these notes, the colored notes, the ones that aren't the white notes, we leave out the white notes, right? If we build some, because the colored ones are in the scale, then I am building something that is going to be some type of modal chord, because it's using so I can look at it from the perspective of a modal chord, right? If I pick up the reason we don't talk that way typically is because it's quite possible that I play a chord that doesn't have the notes in the key in it. Many times we would want to do that So then I have to name the chord, whatever I'm playing, not as a related modal chord of what I'm playing in, but I have to name it with some other naming convention. So what I'm trying to get at is that when I'm playing in any kind of key, what I can think about doing is going from, let's think about the two ways I might play a 1-4-5, for example. If I'm playing a 1-4-5 in the major key, then then I know that I'm going to play obviously the 1-3-5, or the notes in the chord, the relative positions of the chord will all have a major third. Therefore, all of the shapes will be uniform. I'm going to have a 1-4-5. I'm going to have the same shape in it. So if I was on like a C, like if I was up here on here in the C, I can use an E-shaped. If I'm doing bar chords, I can use an E-shaped bar chord. That would be like an E major up here. And then if I go underneath it, then I have an F. So the F is going to be right underneath it for the 4, and I can use an A-shaped, A major shaped bar chord, which is like that A that we can put up here, right? And then I can go up to the G and also use an A-shaped bar chord. And the shapes are the same in essence, are uniform, because they all have a major third. They don't have a flat third. That makes them all movable. That's great. But what if I want to add the 7? Then it becomes a problem, because the 7 doesn't follow the same convention as the third. I can't just say, well, that all the majors are going to have a major 7 and the minors are going to have a minor 7. It doesn't work that way, right? So then when I'm adding the 7, there's two ways I can think of it. Do I want to add the 7 as I'm going from the 1-4-5 and add the 7 that will be in the same key, meaning it'll be one of the colored notes? Okay, well, if I do that, if I'm playing in C major, then this 7 is going to be a major 7, an 11 note away major 7. But then when I go to the 4, this 7 will also be a major 7. But then when I go to the 5, it's going to be a flat 7. So the shape isn't going to be the same. So if I'm playing something in a major scale and I'm adding the 7 to the 1-4-5, and I want to stay all of my notes, I don't want to remove my notes from the colored notes here. I'm going to be in the same key the whole time. Then the 1 is going to have an 11 note away major 7. The 4 is going to have an 11 note away major 7 from the F, right? Because that's going to be in the Lydian mode. Basically, it's a Lydian modal chord, which also has a 7 that is a 11 note away major 7. But then when I go to the 5 and I add the 7, it's going to change. It's going to be the minor 7, a 10 note away minor 7, right? So then the question is, well, what if I wanted to play something bluesy, right? What if I wanted to play a bluesy thing? Well, the bluesy thing, what it does is it always puts in the minor 7, right? So what if I wanted to put in the minor 7 all the time? Well, then I'm going to be thinking, okay, I'm in the key of C, but I'm always going to be adding a minor 7. So like if I was playing the C shape down here, then it's going to be like and then, the C shape like that. But then I'm going to add like this note, right, which is outside the key. Right, so now I've tweaked it. And what did I do? I added a flat 7. So that's the note that's going to be different from the major scale and the Mixolydian. So what have I kind of done here? I've kind of converted the C major to a Mixolydian. I played it as though I was playing mode number 5, a Mixolydian. And then when I go to the F, I'm gonna do in essence the same thing, right? So the F would be up here. So once again, the whole F shape, if it was this C-shaped F, would fit in my C major scale. But I'm adding then once again the flat 7. So this note doesn't fit because the F normally would have an 11 note away major 7, and I flattened it. So now you can think of it as though, okay, I'm just going to be playing the 1-4-5 in the key of C, and then I'm going to add that flat 7 to the chord construction, right? But then when I go to the G chord, so if I played off of this G and I'm in the same thing, it already has the flat 7, that same shape. So if I move that same shape up to the G, it's already there. I don't need, it's already in the key. So you see what's happening here. So that means how am I going to think about that if I'm trying to play something kind of bluesy? One way I can do it is I can say, okay, I'm playing, I know this shape as the C, as the major shape, and I know how to make a major chord, but when I make the major chord, I'm always going to flatten the 7, right? I'm going to add the flattened 7, which means I've basically converted this one from a C major to basically a C Mixolydian, right? And then when I go to the 4, I'm not really playing a Lydian modal chord. I'm kind of switching the 4 and playing it as though I was playing an F Mixolydian chord. And then when I get to the 5, I don't have to convert it. I can think of it as a G Mixolydian. I'm basically playing a Mixolydian. So that means that if I know this shape, I can do this. I could say there's 2 major modes. One of the major modes is the major scale or Ionian, and I can think of myself as playing in the Ionian and basically flattening the 7 and then playing with the 3rd, which is kind of the bluesy thing to do, which basically means I'm kind of converting my mind on those 1 notes to be Mixolydian, right? I'm kind of converting them all to be Mixolydian, because you notice what the blues, the classic form of the blues is doing, is it's saying I'm not going to stay in the same key, but instead I'm going to use uniform shapes. Notice this shape is the same as the C shape as I moved it up the guitar. So it's basically saying I'm going to sacrifice being in the same key for the parallelness, the sameness of the shape, which is going to make it sound like it comes together because everything is parallel in that way. The shapes are all the same, as opposed to being in the same key. So those are your 2 choices. When you go up to it, so the other way you can think about it, it would be like if I wanted to play something in C major, right, in a major key, and this is the 7. Let's play with the 7 again, and this time it has a major 7 in it, which is an 11 note away major 7. Then when I go to the 4, do I want to think of the 4 as being a modal chord of an F Lydian, which would be all the same notes in the key, or do I want to basically think in my mind that I'm going to F major, F Ionian, right? I could say, so when I go to this chord, I can say, look, I'm going to play something completely parallel. It doesn't have to be the blues. It could be anything, right? I could say, well, I'm going to play all of the notes, whatever the notes are in the C major, and then when I go to the 4, instead of thinking of it as a Lydian modal chord, I'm going to think as though I'm switching to an F major scale, right? I'm going to switch it to a major scale, so everything will be parallel. Now, the 2 happen to have the same 1, 3, 5 relative positions, as well as the 7 for the Lydian, but then when I go to like the Mixolydian, again, instead of me saying, I'm going to go to the 5, which is a Mixolydian modal chord if I want to stay in the same key, which means that I can't play the same shape. I would have to play a flat 7. Instead, I'm going to imagine that I went to the 5 and I convert the G to a G major, not a G Mixolydian, which means I'm not going to play a flat 7. I'm going to play the same 7 in relation to the G, so that all the shapes will be parallel. So those are kind of your 2 choices. As I go through my progression, I could stick to just playing the 1, 3, 5. If I do that, then I know that the major chords are the major chords, the minors are the minors. The only difference is the 3rd. But if I want to add particularly the 7, but then go up above the 7, then they're not going to be the same. All the majors and all the minors will not have the same 7, 9, 11, and 13. What are my options then if I play through the chords? Well, if I'm in the majors, I can play the major chords, and again, I can basically say I'm going to play the related modal major chords, which will be different in shape, because they're not going to have the same relative positions of 7, 9, 11, and 13, but they'll be in the same key. Or I can say I want to play the exact same shape, which means I'm going to move the shape up exactly, which means I'm not going to be playing exactly a 4 and a 5 as though they're the modal chords of a Lydian and Mixolydian, but rather I'm going to think in my mind that they're majors, right? So it'd be like I'm playing the 1, which is a C major, and then the 4, which is actually I've converted to an F major mode, right? And then the 5, which I've converted to a G major or Ionian mode. And that way all of my shapes will be parallel, and it should sound cool, even if it's not a bluesy thing that you're doing, even if it's not the 7, although the 7's mostly the most common to kind of do that with, because all of the shapes are parallel in nature, even though they're not in the same key, right? And so I think those are the two ways that you can do it. Now, so if you're doing like a bluesy thing, notice that when you look at the major scale, you're converting the major scale to like as though you're playing the Mixolydian. The other way you can do this is say, well, what if I went down to Mixolydian, right? What if I imagine myself in Mixolydian? So now instead of playing, I'm using the same notes, but instead of playing in C major, I'm playing in G Mixolydian. Now that works great, because that means that like my G shape now can be like this. Whoops, is that right? So I'm just doing that same shape, adding the 7, but that 7 now is in the key because I'm in Mixolydian. So now I'm adding that 7, which works. It's in the key. That's great, but now if I'm thinking of myself in G Mixolydian, what happens when I go to the 4? When I go to the 4, I'm going to basically the Ionian or major scale. So now when I go to the C, of course the C doesn't have that same, here's my C shape, right? Again. So now of course, just like we saw it before, it's the same thing. It doesn't have this note in it. But I could add it. So now what I'm doing is saying the 1, if I'm looking at it from Mixolydian, the 1 already has the flat 7 in it. But when I go to the 4, then it doesn't have the flat 7. I can just add it. And if I do that, I'm kind of imagining that when I go to the 4, I'm converting that C to a Mixolydian. Right? I'm basically saying I'm going to the G Mixolydian, and then I'm going to the relative 4 related to this, but I'm converting it not from an Ionian modal chord, but to a C Mixolydian modal chord. Right? So it's a parallel shape. And then when I go to the 5, notice we have a big problem here that we're like, wait a second, the 5 isn't even a major shape. That's a minor shape, right? That's a D minor like this. Or you could play it this way, a D minor. So I could add that in, right? I could say, okay, here's a G Mixolydian with a flat 7. Here's a C where I'm just not adding the 7, and then I can go to the D minor, and then back to the G. Right, but if I want it to sound kind of bluesy, I'm going to say, okay, well, if this is let's say this was a D minor, I'm going to bring the 3rd up, right? And so now I've converted the D minor to a D Mixolydian again, right? So what I want to be able to do is, okay, I'm going from a G Mixolydian to a C Mixolydian, to a G Mixolydian, to a D Mixolydian. So what I'm doing is I'm just saying, okay, so now I'm in Mixolydian, but I'm going to play the 1, 4, 5, which is going to be the G, the C, and the D, but I'm converting the C from an Ionian modal chord to a a C Mixolydian. And then when I go to the 5, I'm not going to play a minor, but I'm going to convert the minor to a D Mixolydian. So I've basically made the 1, 4, 5 all uniform, going from Mixolydian to Mixolydian to Mixolydian, which makes it all kind of uniform. Now you could go back and forth between those two. Like I could go around one time and say, now I'm going to be playing from Mixolydian, and then go to the C, and then add the C, the 7 that's related to the C, 7, the major 7, or not play the 7 at all. And I could go to the D and then add them and be a D minor. And that'll sound cool because it'll be in the same key, although it won't be parallel. It won't sound as bluesy, right? But it'll be in the same key. So that's why the bluesy thing to me goes into kind of jazzy kind of thing, because it blends all this stuff together. I can go back and forth between those two things, which means it also is easy for me to lead into different modes that way, right? Because if I'm kind of like playing in between the major and the minor, and then I'm going from Mixolydian to Mixolydian to Mixolydian, then I can easily go from any of those other Mixolydians to any of the other related modes, right? I'm kind of just in between. I'm always like a little in between things, right? Okay, that's enough. Maybe I don't know if that made sense, but let's move forward here. Let's do a quick joke first, and then we'll start on our interval practice. It's going to be a long one because I have... anyway, let's try the joke. We'll get there. All right. Isn't it funny how when you hear the phrase eye candy, like I typically think of something that's pleasing to the eye, possibly like a pretty woman, for example, when I hear eye candy. But when I hear the word ear candy, I think of like a gumdrop shaped as an ear, right? Am I the only one where this is the case? Like it works for eye candy. If I hear eye candy, I'm like, there's a pretty lady or something. But then I hear ear candy, and I think of a gumdrop shaped as an ear, like a piece of candy that's ear shaped. I don't know is it just me? I feel like good music should be categorized as ear candy. You should be able to call good music ear candy though. But in order to appreciate ear candy in a healthy way, we need to consume our ear vegetables. Music theory, that is. That's what we're working on here. But vegetables are good too, as long as they're covered in like olive oil or cheese or something. So let's go ahead and consume some ear vegetables so we can make ear candy, which will then attract the eye candy. However, we must remember when consuming stuff to chew, which with eye candy, of course, requires a lot of blinking. If you're eating eye candy to chew, you have to blink a lot. So if any of you pretty women out there are wondering why guys are blinking so much around you, it's just because they're trying to chew you with their eyelids, because their eyes are trying to. Hopefully that thought will totally put you at ease. So here's a pickup line for some people out here. Here's a pickup line I put together. Excuse me, please excuse my obsessant over blinking that's going on here. It's just that my eyes can't help trying to chew you with their eyelids on account of you being such a beautiful eye candy. Oh, that line, a line like that will either get you locked in or laid out right there. Use it with caution. I'm not liable for any negative results. This is the disclaimer. I was just thought that would be. So you might ask, how do the ears chew? If the eyes chew by blinking a lot to chew the eye candy, how do the ears chew the ear candy, And the ears obviously work a little bit different, filtering food like a humpback whale with the ear hair. The ear hair filters the food of the ear candy like a humpback whale. So I'm not sure a pickup line will work with ear candy as well as with eye candy, with the chewing the eye, because you'd have to be like something like, my ear hair would sure like to filter a fine piece of ear candy like you, or something like that. And it's like, I don't know, that seems like it's way more likely to get you laid out than locked in. That doesn't sound, I'm not thinking that's gonna be a good one. Anyway. Okay, so we're on the 7-note away perfect fifth here. This 5 represents that it's the 5th relative position. The 7 represents that it is 7 notes away, not to be confused with the 5-note away perfect 4th. So this is the 7-note away, which is the 5th, the perfect 5th. It's also an odd number, and therefore it's in our normal chord construction, 1, 3, 5. We can just name it the 5. It's also a critical part of the major triad of the 1, 3, 5, and therefore we see it often, and that's good, because I'd like to be able to find that 5th, that power chord, if you just had a 2-note chord, from anywhere, because it always works. It's ambiguous. It actually doesn't give us much flavor as the 3rd, because the 3rd is the defining character of major or minor, but it works 6 out of 7 times. You can always add it, which is great, except on the Locrian, because it's crazy. All right, so we're going to be over here. We're going to say that we're on this note, and if I go 7 notes away is too far this way, so I'm going to go behind it. Remember, if I wrap this string in a circle from fret 1 to 12, wrap it in a circle, if I go 7 steps around one side of the circle, then that means I can get to the same place by going then 12 minus 7, or 5 steps in the reverse direction. So let's go that way, because I might be able to reach it with my finger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 behind it. So now I'm going to say, if I'm here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So from here to here, from that D, that would be a 5-note away, which would be a perfect 4th, but this way, from G to D, therefore would be a 7-note away perfect 5th. All right, let's see if we can crank this out fairly fast, because we have 3 of them to go through and another joke. I have another joke, and that was kind of a long joke, so let's try this one. We're going to go up 1 here, so let's go up 1. All right, so we're looking for a 7-note away perfect 5th. When we go above it, we have to look for the inverse distance, which is going to be 12 minus 7, which is 5, a distance of 5. And we know that this tectonic plate shifted to the right in the earthquake that happened back before time even. And so now we have to go diagonal to go to a 5 this way. So we're just going to go boom. There it is. There is the 5-note distance, because normally 5-note distance would be right up above it. But I'm going to go diagonally to find the 5-note distance instead of going 4 and then 5, because I don't want to be counting up in 4s. I want to count up the strings in 5s. So it's just going to be from here to here, boom, 5-note away. If I went from top to bottom, D to G, that would be then a 5-note away perfect 4th. Therefore, from bottom to top would be a 7-note away perfect 5th. All right, so that means if I go up 1 string, the 7-note away perfect 5th will be 1 fret back if I cross the fault line, but I wouldn't cross the fault line if I was anywhere else. Literally anywhere else, I wouldn't cross the fault line, like here to here. And that means, for example, that when I go up 1 string, the 7-note away perfect 5th will be right above it or on the same fret, unless I cross the fault line, which only happens on the G string, in which case if I go up 1 string and cross the fault line, the 7-note away perfect 5th will be 1 fret back. All right, let's go up 2 strings. 2 strings. Oh, let's go up here. So now we're going to say I'm going to go above it, looking for the 7-note away perfect 5th. Inverse distance is going to be 12 minus 7, or 5. Therefore, I'm going to go diagonal, 5, and then 10. So then I'm going to say negative 10, negative 9. Wait a sec. Negative 10, negative 10, negative 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. There we have it. So I'm looking for a 7-note away perfect 5th. Inverse distance is a 5. So there's a 5 distance of 5. Hopefully I got that right. I feel like I missed something. So I'm going to say this is going to be negative 5, negative 10, negative 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Boom, boom. So if I went from this D to the G, that would then be a 5-note away perfect 4th, and therefore from bottom to top, from the G to the D would be a 7-note away perfect 5th. So if I go up 2 strings and cross the fault line, the the 7th note away perfect 5th will be 1, 2, 3, 4 frets forward, but I wouldn't cross the fault line if I started above the fault line, such as on this G, in which case it would be out here. So normally, if I go up 2 strings, the 7th note away perfect 5th would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets back, unless I cross the fault line, which would only happen on the B string, in which case if I go up 2 strings and cross the fault line, the 7th note away perfect 5th will be 1, 2, 3, 4 frets back. Okay, let's go up another one and say we go up to here. So now I'm going to go above this G, looking for a 7th note away perfect 5th. So I have to take the inverse distance, which is 12 minus 7, or distance of 5. It's going to be -5, -10, 15, and then 15 minus, there's only 12 notes in the musical alphabet, so 15 minus 12 is -3, 4, 5. Boom. Let's count it out this way. So it's going to be 5, 10, 15. 15 minus 12 is -3, 4, 5. Boom. So if I went from top to bottom, that would be a 5 note away perfect 4th, bottom to top. Therefore, 7 note away perfect 5th. That means if I go up 2 strings, if I go up 3 strings and cross the fault line, the 7 note away perfect 5th will be 1, 2, 3 frets back. But I wouldn't cross the fault line if I went up on this G string. Let's do it over here, because then it would look like that. So the rule would be, if I go up 3 strings, then the 7th note away perfect 5th will be 2 frets back unless I cross the fault line, which would happen 2 out of 3 times that I could go up 3 strings. That would be on the bottom B and E string, in which case if I go up 3 strings and cross the fault line, the 7th note away perfect 5th will be 1, 2, 3 frets back. All right, let's go to the top one. Go up to the top row so we can do the body slam from the top row. Now, if I go up to the top row and I'm measuring from the second to bottom string, I might say, why don't I go to the bottom one first, and then the top one will be the same as they are the same notes. So I could say, let's go down first. It's a 7th note away perfect 5th. If I went below it, I would not need to take the inverse distance, but could rather just take 7, and I don't have to cross the fault line because there is no fault line between these 2 strings, so it would be 5, 6, 7. There's the D here, which would match up top. But let's go above it just so we can count it out that way to prove it. If I go above it, I can't go a distance of 7, but must take the inverse distance, 12 minus 7, which is a distance of 5, and cross the fault line diagonally to get to the first -5, 10, 15, and then 15 minus 12 can bring me down to -3. -3 plus another 5 is 8. And so -8, 7, 6, 5. So there it is. We'll do it this way. So -5, -10, -15. 15 minus 12 is -3 plus another 5 is 8. 8, 7, 6, 5. Boom, boom. So that means D to G up here would be a 5 note away perfect 4th, bottom to top. Then would be 7 note away perfect 5th. That means that if I go up 4 strings, I will always cross the fault line, because I can't go 4 strings without crossing the fault line, and therefore the 7 note away perfect 5th will always be 2 frets forward. If I go below it, then we already saw it to some extent. It's a 7 note away perfect 5th. I don't need to take the inverse distance because we're going below it. I don't need to cross the fault line, so I go right below it for a distance of 5, 6, 7. That's our most common power chord shape, so that should be the most familiar. So I'm going to say this goes 5 right here, 6, 7, boom, boom. So that means if I go down 1 string, the 7 note away perfect 5th will be 2 frets forward unless I cross the fault line, which would only happen on the G string, in which case it would be stretched out over here. So if I go down 1 string, the 7 note away perfect 5th will be 2 frets forward unless I cross the fault line, which only happens on the G string, in which case if I go down 1 string and cross the fault line, I would go 3 frets forward. All right. Let's try another joke. I'll do a quick one before we move on to the next one. I'll try to do a quick one here. This one, by the way, has it has a bit of the Bible in it. I'm a fan of the Bible, so this is just a fun, little thing here. It's not intended to be offensive in any way, but I'm sure it'll offend someone anyways. So whatever. So in any case, Am I the only one who, when I read the book of Joshua, it starts to feel like God started speaking with like a Canadian accent when he ordered the attack of the city A? You know, it's like it starts reading like the Lord commanded Joshua, go forth and attack the city A. And I'm expecting Joshua to be like, attack, check, God, but which city do you want me to attack, eh? And God's like, attack, eh? And attack the city, eh? Because like the city is named A, but A is also like what Canadians just always say like all the time, eh? Eh, hoser? I mean, I'm thinking the city of A called their city A as like a defense mechanism, eh? So like the attacking army couldn't organize a battle plan due to the confusing saying A all the time, eh, hoser? I mean, I imagine it took the Israelis like an extra 40 days just to figure out if God was giving a battle plan or just like agreeing with them.
Yeah, what's gonna happen if this plan don't work, eh?
The old man will boot us out of the house. We'll have no place to sleep.
Yeah, I could live in this van, eh? I don't need no place.
Take off. You need money to live or you'll starve.
Well, this plan sucks. I ain't going in.
You are too. I'll tell the old man you gave away his beer money.
Okay, you boss me around.
Let's go to the next one. We're going to the 9-note away major 6. So the 6 represents the 6th position. It's a major 6, which is the same on the major scale and the minor scale. It's on the major scale, but not in the normal minor, where it would be an 8-note away flat in 6th or minor 6. And so we have here a 9-note away, a major 6. And we can see that it is the 6th, and therefore we're not going to have an even number in our chord construction because we skipped each number. So it's 1, 3, 5, and then the 7 is the last note, and then we go around to the 9, which is equivalent to the 2, and then to the 11, which is equivalent to the 4, and then the 13, which is in essence equivalent to the 6. So that means that we're going to call this a 9-note away major 6, but from a chord construction standpoint, we can also call it a 9-note away major 13. So we have to deal with that. Noticing that the 6th is not, of course, as common of an interval that we deal with all the time because it's not in the normal 1, 3, 5. Not only that, but it's not in the normal like 7 even, and it's a little bit tensiony to get out to that when you get to the 13. So that means we need to practice it because we don't see it all the time, as we do see the interval of the perfect 5th quite often, which makes sense because we want to really know the perfect 5th, and we'd also like to know, of course, the 9-note away major 6, but we don't have as much experience like messing with it. However, the inverse distance, 12 minus 9, which is 3 notes away, is a minor 3rd, which we should have a better kind of understanding of, and we'll see that as we go. So 9 notes away is too far going this way, so I'm going to go behind it. That means if I wrapped the string from fret 1 to 12 in a circle, and I went around one direction 9 notes, that means 12 minus 9 going around the other direction would be 3. 1, 2, 3 brings me back to the E, baby. All right, so we're going to say this is going to be 1, 2, 3. So if I went from this E to the G, that would be a 3-note away minor 3rd. Therefore, from G to E, 9-note away major 6. All right, so then let's go above it. So when I go above it, I'm going to take the inverse distance. So I'm looking for a 9-note away major 6, which is also could be called a 9-note away major 13. But I'm looking for the inverse distance because I'm going above it. So 12 minus 9 is a distance of 3. When I go above it, I also have to cross the fault line, which means instead of going to 5 right above it here, I go 5 diagonally. So that's a distance of 5. And then 4, 3 will bring me to this E. If I count it out this way, I'm going to say this is going to be -5, 4, 3. Boom. So if I went from top to bottom, that would be a 3-note away minor 3rd, noting that the inverse of a major is a minor. If I go from the bottom to the top, G to E, that's going to be a 9-note away major 6 or 9-note away major 13. Therefore, if I go up one string and cross the fault line, the 9-note away major 6, 9-note away major 13 will be 1 fret forward, but I normally wouldn't cross the fault line. Like if I was here, I wouldn't cross the fault line. And if I was up here, I wouldn't cross the fault line. So the rule is generally, if I go up one string, the 9-note away major 6, which could also be called the 9-note away major 13, will be 2 frets forward unless I cross the fault line, which only happens on the B string, in which case if I go up one string and cross the fault line, the 9-note away major 6, which could also be called the 9-note away major 13, will be 1 fret forward. Notice this is the position that will possibly be most easy to see this if you recognize the inverse distance and know that it's a minor third, because if I measured from the E to the G, that's a minor third shape. It looks, when I go from this E to the G, it looks like a major third because of the kink in the tuning here. So if I can remember that, then I know that the inverse of that will be then, of course, the 9-note away major 6 or 9-note away major 13. Let's go up 2 strings. I'm looking for the 9-note away major 6 or major 13. I have to look for the inverse distance. Therefore, 12 minus 9 is 3. I have to go diagonal to get a distance of 5 and then 10. And then let me do it this way. Let's go 10, and then it's actually going to be out here. It's going to be right in the middle this time, huh? This is the one that's furthest away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is the one that we're least likely to kind of be using oftentimes because it's 6 frets away, but that's the furthest distance we can get. Equilateral triangle that we have here. So we're going to say this is going to be 5, 10. Now if it's an equal distance, it would be easier to reach up this way because of the smaller frets. So 5, negative 10, negative 10, negative 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Or I can say negative 5, negative 10, negative 10, negative 11, 12 brings me to the octave, which I can say 12 to 0, 1, 2, 3. Boom. All right, let's count it out this way. So I'm going to say from here, negative 5, negative 10, negative 10, and then I want to go up. Negative 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Ugh, it's quite a reach. Oh, that's the wrong string. So that's gonna, if I went from top to bottom, that would be a 3-note away minor third. Bottom to top, therefore, would be a 9-note away major 6, which could also be called a 9-note away major 13. So if I go up 2 strings, the 9-note away major 6, if I go up 2 strings and cross the fault line, the 9-note away major 6, which could also be called the 9-note away major 13, will be 6 frets forward, which means it's also going to be 6 frets back. I wouldn't cross the fault line if I was on above the G string here. So if I'm above the G string, then let's go to this G out here. Then I'm going to go up 2, and it would be right there, which would be a 5-note distance backwards. So the general rule, if I go up 2 strings, the 9-note away major 6, which could also be called the 9-note away major 13, will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets back, which is a shorter distance than going forward, which would be 7 notes forward, unless I cross the fault line, which I would if I was on the bottom 2 strings, the B and the E string, in which case, if I go up 2 strings and cross the fault line, then it's going to be 6, the 9-note away major 6 or 9-note away major 13 will be 6 frets back, and therefore also 6 frets forward, in which case it would be easier to go forward because it would be smaller distance forward because of the smaller fret sizes. All right, that's the long one. The rest of them should be more reachable and easier. So let's go up to the next one. Ba-boom. Let's bring this back there. Ba-bam. All right. So we're looking for a distance of a 9-note away major 6, 9-note away major 13, going up 1, 2, 3 strings. So I'm looking for an inverse distance. 12 minus 9 is 3. So I'm going to say this is going to be 5 going here, 10, and then 15. 15, there's only 12 notes in the musical alphabet. 15 minus 12 is negative 3. If I count it out this way, negative 5, negative 10, negative 15. 15 minus 12 is 3. So if I went from the E to the G, that would be a 3-note away minor third, and therefore bottom to top, G to E, would be a 9-note away major 6, which could also be called a 9-note away major 13. So that means if I go up 3 strings and cross the fault line, the 9 note away major 6 or 9 note away major 13 will be 1 fret back. I wouldn't cross the fault line if I was on above the fault line on like this G string, so if I went up to this E, it would be on the same fret. So that means the general rule is if I go up 3 strings, the 9 note away major 6, which could also be called the 9 note away major 13, will be on the same fret unless I cross the fault line, which would happen 2 out of 3 times that I could go up 3 strings on the bottom 2 strings, the B and the E string, in which case if I go up 3 strings and cross the fault line, the 9 note away major 6, which could also be called the 9 note away major 13, will be 1 fret back. All right, let's go to the top one. Let's go to the top. This one here. Let's go this way. So if I go to the top, I might more easily go to the bottom string because I'm right next to the bottom string and the top string will be the same note. So if I'm going below it, looking for the 9 note away major 6 or 9 note away major 13, I don't need to look for the inverse distance, but could just go a distance of 9. I don't need to cross the fault line when I'm going below because it's just going to be a distance of 5, no fault line between these 2 strings. Therefore 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, there's the E here, which matches up top. But let's count it up top to count it that way as well. If I go above it, I have to take the inverse distance, so a 9 note away major 6 or major 13. 12 minus 9 is a distance of 3. Negative 5 diagonal because I'm crossing the fault line. Negative 10, negative 15. 15 minus 12 is a negative 3 plus another 5 is 8. So 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Boom. All right. Easy. It wasn't that easy. It's a little, but it's going to be 5, 10, 15. 15 minus 12 is 3. 3 plus another 5 is 8. So 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Ba-boom, boom. So we're going to go top to bottom, E to G. Would be a 3 note away minor third, bottom to top. Will be a 9 note away major 6, which could also be called a 9 note away major 13. So that means that if I go up 4 strings, I will always cross the fault line because I can't go up 4 strings and not cross the fault line. Therefore, the 9 note away major 6, which could also be called the 9 note away major 13, will be 1, 2, 3, 4 frets forward. All right, what if I go below it? If I go below it, we already did it to some extent. I don't have to go an inverse distance. Therefore, the 9 note away major 6 or 9 note away major 13 will simply be a distance of 9. And I don't need to cross the fault line. I can go right below it to get a distance of 5 because I want to count in 5s. It's easier to do than counting in like 4s or something. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Boom. Let's count it this way. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So top to bottom would be a 9 note away major 6, bottom to top. Therefore, if I wanted to look at it that way, it would be a 3 note away minor third. Whew. All right, let's do one more. I won't do a joke in between. We'll try to finish this off because now we're on the distinctive interval, the 10 note away minor 7. Up until this point, all of the intervals have been the same from the distance of the G as our major scale, which we saw as related distances from the C, right? So if I was to build my intervals from this C, I could use, it would be all the same intervals until I got to this 7, right? And now I'm building from the G. I could use all the same intervals on a C major or a major scale, except for the 7 to get to this shape, right? This shape, the difference between, well, anyways, let's go ahead and do it. Let's not get too crazy here. Mind is starting to fade. You just get it done. Let's get to the business. All right. So it's a 10 note away minor 7. So notice that the major scale has an 11 note away major 7. So this is the flat 7, noting that the flat 7 is actually more common than the major 7. So the major 7 is on the C major, has a major 7, 11 note away major 7, and the other major chord or mode, which is the Lydian, has a major 7. But the Mixolydian, what we're on, as we can see, has a flat 7, 10 note away, which we call a minor 7, as do all the minor modes, meaning the minor scale, otherwise known as the Aeolian mode, the Dorian mode, and the Phrygian mode, all have a minor 7. So actually, minor 7 is more common than the major 7, but not as common when we're playing a major key, which is usually the Ionian or major scale. So this, of course, is the distinctive interval that we can convert. Now, notice if I know this shape, because I'm playing in C major and the related A minor, and I just know that shape, and I want to look at the G and say, okay, I'd like to play in the key of G now. Well, I could just play all the same notes and I'd be playing in G Mixolydian. But what if I want to play in G major? Then all we'd have to do to convert this same set of notes to the G major shape is just take that 7 that is flattened with relation to the G and unflatten it, right? So this F then, I could take like all of the Fs and move it up, right? So that move, you're going to say, hey, that has an F sharp or a G flat in it. It has a sharp or flat in it. Yeah, because now we switched from a C major and related modes to the G major, right? As opposed to the G Mixolydian, which has the flat 7 in it. All right, so that's going to be the general idea here. So the 10 or the 7 here represents the 7th position. The 10 represents the distance in half steps. All right, let's count this out. So I could go 10 this way, but if I wrap this around in a circle, if I go around 10 one way, the other way would be the inverse distance, which would be 12 minus 10, because there's only 12 steps, which would be 2. So I could go 2 behind it. So I can just say if I go from here behind it to there, if I went from this F to the G, that'd be a distance of 2, which would be a 2-note away major second. But if I went from the G back to the F, that would be a 10-note away minor 7. Now notice what we're missing on the Mixolydian. We're missing the leading tone, that tone that pulls us home. See that leading tone? We don't have that. We don't have that in all the minors as well. You know what we do? We just say, I'll just throw it in there anyways. So now I'm gonna step in the lava. I'm gonna step in the white notes, right? When I'm playing around, just as long as I dip my toe in it lightly, then it won't burn me, you know. So by my leading tone going home. So you're gonna hear that kind of thing. So I can always, as long as I'm playing that key, that note, the major 7, as a half step lead in to home, then that's always going to work, even in a minor key, right? You can add that because it's leading home. The ear's going to go, that doesn't sound right, it's out of the key. But then you hear that it goes home after that, and you're like, oh, I get why that happened, because he's going home. So that's cool. So it was a little leading tone. He had to step in the lava to get home. His shoe got dirty a little bit. That's okay, because it was going home. So I see why. So the ear's like cool with that. It's like, okay, I see why that happened. But if you play it and then you don't go home, and then you're like, oh, and you go somewhere else, you could do that, but that's going to leave you hanging. That's going to sound a little bit less wonky. So anytime you take a half step, by the way, any half step kind of works. Like even if you're not going to the tonic, but I'm going to like another note, like an A, and I put the half step to go to the A, that'll still kind of work, right? You can play with that. It'll be a little muddy, but it'll sound like you're leading to the A that way. So you can kind of do that even though you're playing in the key of G, right? Any half step kind of works. You can throw in half steps, see what happens. Any case. So let's say we go above it. We're going to go above it. We're looking for the F. So I'm looking for a 10-note away minor 7. So I have to look for the inverse distance, which is 12 minus 10, which is going to be a distance of 2. I've got to go diagonal across the fault line. I can't go 5 distance this way. I got to go diagonal. I want to count in 5s. Therefore, I will go diagonal. -5, 4, 3, 2. So let's count it out this way. So if I go from here to here, -5, 4, 3, 2, boom, boom. So from top to bottom, F to G, that's going to be a 2-note away minor, 2-note away major second. So the inverse of a minor, the minor 7, is a major, which is a major second. So bottom to top, therefore, is a 10-note away minor 7. So where's the major 7? It's right after it, right? So what if I was doing like a bluesy kind of thing? Then you could kind of smear the two, right? You might want to smear it the other way. that's kind of funky. But when do you usually use it? When I'm going home, right? To that G right there. So I'm on a G here, but if I was going home, then I get a double G, the double sub. So if you like you took it all the way out, then that might work. Anyway, let's go up to the next one. Oh, wait a sec. That means if I go up one string and cross the fault line, the 10 note away minor 7 will be 2 frets forward. And by the way, on a chord construction, it's a 7, which isn't part of the normal triad, so we're not as familiar with it, but it's still an odd note. It's the last odd note in the scale, so we don't have to at least name it something different that way, although the major and minor convention will not work the same because the 7 will not always have a major 7 on like the 1, 4, 5 and whatnot that we talked about before. All right, so what if I didn't cross the fault line? Then like what if I didn't? What if I was down here and I didn't cross the fault line? Then it would be up here, and then if I didn't cross the fault line up here, so that's the only time I would cross the fault line. So normally, if I go up one string, the 10 note away minor 7 will be 3 frets forward unless I cross the fault line, which would only happen on the B string, in which case if I go up one string and cross the fault line, the 10 note away minor 7 will be 2 frets forward. Okay, so let's go up again. We're running too long, pulling too much time here. That's okay. I could do this all day. 1, 2, 3, 4. You may not know this, but I can run like the wind blows. I can run all day. Let's go. So I'm looking for a 10 note away minor 7. 12 minus 10 is 2, so a distance of 2. Diagonal to cross the fault line. So this is going to be 5 going this way because I'm crossing the fault line. -5, -10, and then 11, 12. So that's octave 12, which I can go back down to 0, and then -1, 2. So we can count it out that way. So I'm going to say this is going to be -5, -10, and then 11, 12, or octave 12, or 0, 1, 2. So boom, boom, F. So this F way out here. So that means if top to bottom, that would be a 2 note away, which would be a major second, bottom to top. From the G to measuring from the G would be a 10 note away minor 7. That means if I go, and notice where would the major 7 be? Right there, leading into the G again, leading into the G. So you always have that kind of, here's the G, there's the flat 7, 2 strings back, 1 string back, the major, and you always have that roll you can play with. So then, all right, so that means that if I go up 2 strings, then, and cross the fault line, the 10 note away minor 7 will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets back, but I wouldn't cross the fault line. I wouldn't cross the fault line if I was above the fault line here, then I wouldn't have to cross that stupid fault line. What if there's an earthquake when I'm walking across it? I don't want to go across a fault line. People are crazy living on fault lines. What are you doing? Just the other day I saw someone. Anyway, so so the general rule is if I go up 2 strings, the 10 note away minor 7 will be 1, 2, 3, 4 frets back unless I cross the fault line, which would happen 2 out of 3 times, or is that right? No, 2 out of 4 times if I was starting on the bottom 2 strings, the B or the E string on the bottom of the guitar, in which case if I went up 2 strings and crossed the fault line, the 10 note away minor 7 will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets back. Back, 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 baby. All right, let's go to the next one up. All right, so now we're gonna say I'm looking for the 10 note away minor 7. Have to go to the inverse distance because I'm going above it. 12 minus 10 is distance of 2. Have to go diagonal to get a distance of 5 because of the fault line. 5, 10, 15. There's only 12 notes in the musical alphabet, so it's 15 minus 12 is -3. Notice, again, it's always 15 minus 12 because we're counting in units of 5. So whenever I hit 15, it's always going to be 15 minus 12. It's not that, so the math seems heavy, but no, because it's always 15 minus 12, which is negative 3, and then 2 going this way. So I'm going to say, all right, this is going to be negative 5, 10, 15, and then 15 minus 12 is negative 3, and then 2. So if I went from top to bottom, that would be a 2-note away major second, bottom to top, therefore 10-note away minor 7. Where's the major 7? If that's the minor 7, the major 7's right next to it, and then the octave. Anyway, so that means that if I go up 3 strings and cross the fault line, the 10-note away minor 7 will be on the same fret, but I wouldn't cross the fault line if I was starting above it, like on this G string. Then I wouldn't cross the fault line. So the general rule is that if I go up 3 strings, the 10-note away minor 7 will be 1 fret forward unless I cross the fault line, which would happen 2 out of 3 times that I could possibly go up 3 strings, which would be on the bottom 2 strings, the B and the bottom E string, in which case if I went up 3 strings and crossed the fault line, the 10-note away minor 7 would be on the same fret. All right, let's go to the top string then. This is the longest of the distances. I think 6, so it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, I should go forward. Forward. This way. Okay. So now we're going to say, okay. But now if I go, I'm looking for a 10-note away minor 7 up 4 strings. But if I'm going to the top string, I might want to measure the bottom string because it'd be easier, you know, because I'm like right next to it. And I don't have to cross the fault line that way or do the inverse distance. So I'm going to go to the bottom string and then the top will be the same. Because like if it was a 10-note away minor 7, then when I go below it, I don't have to take the inverse distance. I could just go a distance of 10. And when I go below it, I don't have to cross the fault line. So instead of going diagonal, I could just go right underneath it to count to 5. And then like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 would be right there. And if that's an F, which is a 10-note away minor 7 on the bottom string, it's got to be the same on the top. But what if I wanted to count it on the top? Well, then I could do it that way if I wanted to. I don't think it's as easy, but it would be a 10-note away minor 7 has an inverse distance of 12 minus 10, which would be a distance of 2, and then I'd have to go diagonal to count a distance of 5 instead of going right above it, because that would only be a distance of 4, and I don't want to count in 4s because that's harder. So I'm going to say this is going to be negative 5, 10, 15, and then when I get to 15, I'm going to bring it back down to 3 by taking 15 minus 12 is negative 3 plus another 5, which would bring it to 8, and then 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, distance of 2. Let's do it again over here. It's going to be 5, 10, 15, and then 15 minus 12 is negative 3 plus another 5 is 8, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, boom, bam. So this F to that G would be a 2-note away major second, G to F, therefore would be a 10-note away minor 7, which means that if I go up 4 strings, I will always cross the fault line, because you can't go up 4 strings without crossing the fault line unless you're going around the top of the guitar, which we're not going to get into. Not going to get into that with you, man. Why? Because I'd kill you. Wouldn't be a fair. Anyway, so that means that if I go up 4 strings, not literally, that was a movie line. I don't know where that. Anyway, I go up 4 strings, and then that means that it would, if I go up 4 strings, the 10-note away minor 7 will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets forward. All right, what if I went below it? Well, we already took a look at it. If I go below it, then I don't have to take the inverse distance. I could just go a distance of 10. I don't have to cross the fault line, so I can go a distance of 5 right below it, because there is no fault line if I go below it. And then I'm just going to go 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Boom. Let's count it out this way. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So top to bottom. Boom, boom. Would be a 10-note away minor 7. That means that bottom to top, by the way, would be a 2-note away, which would be a major second.